If you saw my last video, we had storms all through Wisconsin and we have hundreds of trees down in our property. Our forester came out yesterday, we talked to him. He said since we have a select cut scheduled for this winter anyway, he's just gonna end up taking the bigger logs. Most of our property here is in a state program to where we don't really manage it. Our forester does, and they come in and schedule what's getting cut, how much they're cutting, all that. So I really only have access to the first 5 acres of land here that we have our house on. I've been making my way through the trees on our first 5 acres here that I can use, and the smaller ones I'm gonna use for weed control in my blueberry patch. I'm gonna take them down, put them in between the rows of blueberries and fill them with chips, so there's at least a border between the grass. The bigger trees I'm gonna be turning into raised beds, a lot of them, and the one I'm standing by right here I'm going to be using for the foundation of my chicken coop. I'm going to be cutting this log into 2-foot sections, putting it in the ground a little bit and putting some gravel around it, and I'm going to drill the boards from the bottom of the coop into the logs. We're building a pole barn. We're a couple days into that, got everything framed up. It looks like we're going to have some extra lumber, so I'll be able to use that to build this coop, or at least some of it to build the coop. I want to use as much material that we have on hand as possible so I don't have to buy anything. right, got the foundation in place. We were able to get some logs cut out of a tree and got them leveled. Got some boards across, got them leveled, and we're just a little bit off square. Our chicks are getting huge, like they've grown so much, like even in the past few days, seems like they've doubled in size, so we definitely have to get the fence up around this place and get this built so they have a place to go. I went a little small on this one. I don't want too many birds, and this is just gonna be their nighttime place. I'm gonna fence off this whole area behind me and let them run around and forage for a lot of their food. I'm also gonna be building some composting systems in here and give them a bunch of piles of leaves and grass and food scraps, everything like that for them to pick through and add manure to and build some compost. And once one pile gets done, I'm gonna have my composting bins here to the point where I can fence them off or put something in front of them to keep them out and let them work on the next pile and let that pile sit for however long it needs to. There's a lot I have to get done today. I'm gonna start off with some garden upkeep. I'm gonna weed all the raised beds that we have over here, prune the tomatoes, get a lot of stuff planted. I have this greenhouse I'm gonna get planted and plant any other space available in the raised beds. Yesterday I mowed our orchard and weeded and staked all the peppers and tomatoes in our greenhouse. So I'm gonna get up there, plant some carrots, some other things in there, maybe some romaine, see how that works. I'm gonna experiment a little bit with that. After I'm done with all that, I'm gonna get to putting these raised beds into position. We have a lot of logs from this tornado that went through our area, a lot of trees blown over, so I'm gonna try to repurpose that material as much as I can. I'm gonna try to get those logs cut up and dragged into our garden area and get them positioned as best I can. And I'm gonna go see if my cousin has some time to move some soil for me and make it a lot easier. He might be a little tied up with this tornado that came through. I think his land got hit pretty hard, so I don't know what he's doing there. But I'm gonna go ask him, see if he has some time, and if not, then I'm gonna get to filling them up on a different day. But for today, I'm just gonna get the logs cut up, get them in here or at least close to position. And also, if I have some time, I plan on getting over to the blueberry patch and getting some logs cut up from trees that fell down over there, and I'm gonna get those into position, and I'm gonna run logs along the rows of blueberries that I have over there and spread chips in between those logs. I wanna do that to kind of give them mulching and control the weeds a little bit, and I wanna chip that whole area, but it's just hard to get chips out here because I'm pretty remote. So I'm trying to be as efficient with my chips as possible, and if I put some logs on the rows of berries on each side of the berries, I can at least give them a border between the grass over there so that it kind of keeps the grass from taking over the chips. It's an absolute scorcher today, so I'm gonna get going, try to work as efficiently as possible, and hopefully I don't get heat stroke. Well, I just found something that I have to crack down my greenhouse. I was transplanting some Romas that we have started in this bed, and I put them in the greenhouse, and a gust of wind came through and blew the door shut, and I couldn't get out from the inside. So I'm gonna have to figure that out for sure, because that is not somewhere you want to be trapped on a 90+ degree day with extreme humidity for a long period of time. I was lucky that someone was home and they could come get me, or else I would have been sitting there for a long time. So I'm gonna have to figure something out there. Okay, I got a lot of the weeding done. There's still a little more I have to clean up, but I'll do that tonight when it's a little cooler. I got a lot of romaine and carrots and radishes planted. I spaced out the romaine a little bit more this time because the one bed we have of romaine here, it's all on top of each other. It's a little bit too close, so I gave it a little bit more space this time. I'm gonna see how that does. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start building some raised beds. And I'm gonna start with these triangle beds that we have here. I was gonna do rows in here initially, but I thought it made more sense to do individual beds for things like zucchini, cabbage, some romas, things like that. Because if I do rows, I have to space them out, and it's just using up more soil, more compost, and it's more things that I have to keep weeded. So if I do individual beds like this, I can just chip the area around it and just kind of weed the individual beds, and it should be a lot easier to maintain. So there was kind of a change of plans in my day. I was planning on getting the garden weeded, getting a bunch of stuff planted, and getting the beds in place, and even getting some logs over to my blueberry patch and start the weed control process over there. As soon as I got everything weeded and planted, our forester called and said he was in the area and said he was gonna stop out, and hopefully we could go for a walk around our property and see how much damage was caused by the storm and see how many trees were down and come up with a game plan. So that's what we did. That's just what I spent the last few hours doing. We walked around and saw how many trees were down, saw how many trees were salvageable, how many areas were getting thinned, all that sort of thing. So we came up with a plan. And he's coming back out in the next couple weeks to mark the trees that we're going to be taken out of here, and then he bids it out to the logging companies, and they come in and take all the trees. So I learned a lot. That was actually my first time meeting our forester, and it's really good to meet him now that I'm going to be living here. And I learned a lot about trees and management, sustainable practices for forests, all of that. So we're in what's called an MFL. It's a Managed Forest Land Program. And what that is, it's a state program. The deal is that we get assigned a forester, we have a forester. He kind of controls how much we log or how often we log, all of that. So, and what trees we take, all of that. So he puts a plan together, submits it to the DNR, or the Department of Natural Resources in Wisconsin, and they agree, and in return we pay a lot less in taxes. So the idea is they can have sustainable forests for the next generation, and we pay less taxes so we can keep on owning this land. I think they came up with this because a long time ago it was really expensive to pay taxes on a lot of land. So what people would do is when the tax bill came around, they would just go out into the forest, cut all the trees down that they could until they could pay the tax bill, and over time that kind of led to a lot of deforestation. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I spent the last few hours doing, and now I'm back in my garden. I'm not gonna get to the raised beds today. I'm gonna probably put that on hold for tomorrow. But I do have to rig up a hose and water my greenhouse. It's a self-watering greenhouse, and we're not gonna have rain for a while, so I gotta get some water in that and all the seeds that is planted today. My hose that I have here isn't long enough to reach into the garden, so instead of buying more hose, which would have been like a lot, I don't remember how much it was, but it was a decent amount of money. I don't want to spend that. I have some 1/2-inch poly laying around, so I'm going to run some poly to the garden, rig up an adapter, and use that to run the hose. It took my brother and me a long time to find the adapters we were looking for. We had to rummage through a lot of junk drawers in our basement here, but we found them. We put them on. I just got to get the poly run out here and get it set up. I'm going to put a 4x4 in the ground and run the poly up to that and fasten it to it, and then hook my hose on. Also, while I was gone, my brother made some cold frames. We've been experimenting with some cold frame designs. He put one together using some 2x2 cedars and some metal conduit. And we had some greenhouse plastic laying around, so we put all that to use. I think it looks good though. We're not going to put it on yet because it's extremely hot, but I'll get it on there soon. I'm excited to get that on there. We have a very short growing season up here, and we want to extend it in a lot of different ways, and cold frames in our greenhouses are a big part of that. And I got our chicks on grass for the first time. I made this little fenced off area here with some welded wire, and I put some chicken wire and hardware cloth around the bottom to keep them inside. And they are loving it. I've spread a lot of food in here. They're eating bugs, they're foraging, they seem extremely happy. I made them a little shade tarp, so they are good. It's been extremely hot the past couple days, so I was a little worried about that. They just seemed to chill under the tarp for a little bit, and then as soon as the shade hit, they were out and about. It's not exactly perfect. I'm gonna clean it up a little bit tomorrow, but I at least have my hose in place for now. I put this right here because I'm still gonna have to water my greenhouses on days that it doesn't rain. One thing I wanted to mention about this is, first of all, I used a 1/2-inch poly instead of a hose to run down here to hook up to the hose, because that saves me a lot of money. I ran the poly down here, put it up this 4x4, attach it to the hose, and then I can water pretty much this whole garden area and my greenhouse. I put this extra 1.5 foot of poly past where the poly goes up the 4x4 to connect to our hose here. I put this here because I'm going to be using this hose to water everything in the winter. I'm planning on having carrots and other things, other cold hardy crops out here when it's snowing. So I'm going to be out here a lot watering when it's really cold, and I don't want to hook up a hose and run a hose down here every time. So I put this extra 1.5 foot at the end here with a nozzle that'll turn on and off, or that'll close and open the pipe here, so when it's cold I can turn it on and gravity will feed the water out of this poly, out of the tube, so it doesn't freeze. But I'm going to keep this turned off the rest of the summer, and as soon as that gets cold and starts freezing up at night, I'm going to turn it on every night and drain it all out so I don't get anything frozen in here.